This is the first part of the video. In this chapter, we deal with the nationalism in India. Nationalism in India. In British time, India was not a nation. It was a nation in making during national movement. At the time of independence, British India has 17 provinces and 565 princely states. The growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. People began discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with colonialism. The Congress under Gandhiji tried to force different groups together within one movement. There was a great impact of World War I on Indian nationalism. The national movement get impetus from the outcome of World War I. Several challenges were faced by Indian peoples during and after World War I. The war created a new economic and political situation in India, which is very hard for the resident of India. The huge increase in defense expenditure, which is financed by war loans and increased taxation. Custom duties were raised and a new income tax was introduced. The price of goods were doubled, causing extreme hardship to the common people. In meantime, crop failed in some areas, causing shortage of food. In meantime, an epidemic or influenza epidemic killed several people. Forced recruitment in the rural areas also caused a widespread anger among the people. People hoped that their hardship will end after war. Was not happened. The idea of satyagraha. This idea of satyagraha was introduced by Gandhiji. His idea of satyagraha is quite different from passive resistance. It's a positive force. So the idea of satyagraha, in this topic we are going to deal with what satyagraha means. Gandhiji emerged as a new leader of Congress who returned from a successful tour from South Africa, where he fought against a racist regime with his new method of mass agitation. Satyagraha. The idea of satyagraha emphasized on the power of truth and need to search for truth. It was based on truth and non-violence. There are some features of satyagraha. These are some common features that should be practiced by a satyagrahi. Gandhiji never elaborate his ideas. We only come to know about these things by his speeches or his writing. He never explained his philosophy or Gandhian philosophy related to satyagraha, Gram Swaraj, or etc. The features of satyagraha. The struggle was against injustice. If the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. The second feature, a satyagrahi was not to submit to what is considered as wrong, but always remain truthful, non-violent, and fearless. He should be ready to accept the suffering in his struggle against the evildoers. Hatred would be alien to his nature. Satyagrahi never bow before the evil, whatever the consequences. Only brave and strong could practice satyagraha. Violence was preferred to cowardice. Gandhiji for the first time organized satyagraha in India in support of peasants in Champaran, Bihar in 1917 and then in Kheda, Gujarat in 1918. This was the first time Gandhiji employed satyagraha in India. He had gone to Champaran on the invitation of Rajkumar Shukla to see the plight of Tinkatia peasants, where they were forced by the British landlord to grow indigo in their land. Gandhiji undertook a fast unto death to strengthen the workers' resolve during Ahmedabad mill strike in 1918. This was the first time he had employed fast unto death in India. The Rowlatt Act. The Anarchical and Revolutionary Crime Act of 1918, popularly known as Rowlatt Act, passed on the recommendation of Rowlatt Committee headed by British Judge Sir Sydney Rowlatt. This act gave enormous power to British government. It allowed to detain any person without trial for 2 years. This was passed when nationalists were expecting post-war constitutional concessions. This regressive act took as an insult by Indian leaders. Gandhiji called a nationwide protest in February 1919. As the constitutional protest failed, he organized Satyagraha Sabha. He wanted to start non-violent civil disobedience movement against the law, which started with Hartal on 6th of April. Rallies were organized, shops were closed down, and railway workers went on strike. British decided to clamp down on this movement. The nationalist leaders were picked up. On 10th April, Punjab police opened fire on peaceful procession. Martial law was imposed and General Dyer took command. On the Baisakhi day, 13th April, people from neighboring villages, unaware of prohibitory orders, gathered in a small park, where some leaders protest against the arrest of Saifuddin Kichlu and Satyapal. General Dyer went there to teach a lesson to Indians, blocked the exit and opened fire on an unarmed crowd, killing more than 1,000 people. To enquire in the matter of Jallianwala Massacre, a Hunter Commission was formed, which was an eyewash. When General Dyer returned back to England, the people of England collected thousands of money to felicitate General Dyer. There was a great effect of Jallianwala Bagh Massacre on the national movement. The people were stunned by knowing the news. On the hearing of the news, crowd took to the street. Strike and clashes with police. Attack on government building. Indian people had to face humiliation from the British police. They were asked to crawl on the road or give salute to every policeman when they pass by. A Hunter Commission was formed to inquire the massacre. But this was just an eyewash. Rabindranath Tagore renounced his knighthood after Jallianwala Massacre. Gandhiji withdrew the movement which he started in April 18, 1919. The next big impact on Indian national movement was Khilafat movement. Khalifa or Khilafat or Caliph is also known as the spiritual head of Islamic world. After the World War I, Ottoman Turkey was defeated, and there was a rumor that a harsh peace treaty was going to impose on Ottoman Emperor. This was happened in the Severus, the Treaty of Severus. The Ottoman Emperor, who was the spiritual head of Islamic world or Khalifa, to defend him, Khilafat Committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919 by young generation Muslim leaders like Ali brothers, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. They began discussion with Gandhiji about the possibility of united mass action on this issue. Gandhiji was also very happy to start a movement with joint effort of Hindu and Muslims. He sees this as an opportunity where he can force unity among two big communities in India, Hindu and Muslims. The next topic, why Gandhiji started non-cooperation. What was the event that preluded non-cooperation movement? The Indian people faced economic hardship after post-war years. The event like Rowlatt Act, imposition of martial law and Jallianwala Massacre had compelled the Indian leaders to start a movement to overthrow British government. These events also angered the Indian people. The Hunter Commission, which was formed after the Jallianwala Massacre to inquire in the matter, was just an eyewash. The failure of Montagu-Chelmsford reform, which was introduced in India as a Government of India Act 1919, was also failed. This reform won't come up to the expectation of Indian leaders. Even the moderates were not satisfied. The moderate and extremist leaders of Indian National Congress, who were separated after Surat conference, reunited during the Lucknow session in 1916. Muslim and Hindu, that is Muslim League and Indian National Congress, united after Lucknow pact in 1916. This gave us strength to start a united movement against the British government. The next is the Khilafat injustice. These things compel the Indian leaders, especially Gandhiji, who see that Indian situation is quite ripe to start a movement to overthrow the British government to get Swaraj. And this new topic, measures of non-cooperation. Two different stages were set for implementation of the movement. The first phase began with surrender of titles and awards, boycott of civil services, army, police, court, school, legislative, and foreign clothes. The second stage start if the government resort to repression and full civil disobedience campaign would be launched. Finally, non-cooperation movement was adopted by Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920. The next topic is related with differing stand within the movement. The movement in town. Movement in town was started with middle class participation. They resort to boycott of school, court, foreign clothes, foreign goods, picketing of liquor shop, bonfire of foreign clothes, etc. In this time, Indian import of foreign good from the Britain reduced to half. In 1921 to 1922, the import reduced from 102 crores to 57 crores. The Indian people gave support to Indian industries and they start using Indian goods. To fulfill the demand, the Indian entrepreneurs started Indian industries to fulfill the demand of Indian people. But the movement was slowed down because khadi was costlier than foreign clothes. And also lack of Indian institute compelled the teachers and students to join back the government schools. Even though lots of industries and schools and universities were opened, but they were not sufficient to accommodate all the students. Rebellion in countryside. The peasants and tribals participated in the movement. They demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar. In Awadh, peasants resort to social boycott of oppressive landlord by Nai Dhobi Bandh. Their leader was Baba Ramchandra, who returned from Fiji, who act as an indentured labor there, become the leader of the peasants in Uttar Pradesh. The movement take a violent turn. The house of talukdar and merchants were attacked. Their grains were looted and their registers were burned down. In Gudem Hill of Andhra Pradesh, tribals under the leaders of Aliru Sitaram Raju organized guerrilla movement against the colonial forest law. These measures were not supported by the Congress. They felt that their traditional rights were taken away by British. Swaraj in plantation. The plantation workers in Assam were bounded by Inland Immigration Act of 1859 think of freedom from bondage and expected land should be given to them in their village if Gandhi ji Swaraj dream get